Hey, welcome to the Pharmacy Residency Podcast. A member of the Pharmacy Podcast Network. Just got back from seeing my parents in Arizona, which is just amazing, and kind of the promise of pharmacy that, we get to do things with our kids, we get to do things with our family, and we get to have that kind of great future. But some of you are putting that future at risk, and I don't know how to say this in a nice way, and so I'm going to try to be a little more direct now, but I wanted to let you know that I will be able to now turn around letters of intent from now until the 16th, when I think the last deadline is, in 24 hours. So if you need help with your letter of intent, residency.teachable.com/P/interview/extreme LOI, and you can sign up there or contact me at tonythepharmacist@gmail.com. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about what I do, because I'll be helping, I want to say, around 160, maybe all the way up to 240, somewhere between there, students this year. And it's really all about creating a plate. And we keep using that word template. But what I was thinking of was the U.S. Treasury has these amazing plates where, it creates the money quite literally. And those plates have to take 28 tons of pressure. And this is something I think that many students don't think about, is the amount of pressure that those documents that you're sending in are going to take. When you take them to your friends and your professors, they're giving you pats on the back, good job, maybe tweak a little here, tweak a little there. That's no pressure. But when it goes in and someone is exhausted trying to read these things during their lunch, and they see an error or a couple of errors, or a generic template where you accidentally put some other site's information in there and things like that, they're just like, just not even. I'm just exhausted. No. Each of those plates at the U.S. Treasury needs to get about 1 million impressions. So 28 tons of pressure, 1 million impressions. And that's what you're really trying to do when you work with me, is we're trying to get that first plate set up in such a way that you can tweak it from there so that all of the other ones after it look great. And I mean, obviously with residency, you're not printing money, but you are applying for a job. And as I'm, getting these kind of late submissions, at first I was like, oh man, what's going on that it took them this long? But I'm thinking the other way, where many of you, especially those of you going into that PGY1, PGY2 with leadership, are going to be executives. Nowhere in your future will you ever write your own letter. You would have somebody come in, you'd talk to them about it, you'd tell them this is what I think I want, and you would maybe dictate the letter itself. But no way would you waste time and hours and hours and hours trying to put together a piece of paper for yourself. That's something you would delegate. And that's the thing, is that as pharmacists, those that have to micromanage within the pharmacy, and you've worked for them, they're absolutely burnt out, absolutely exhausted. They're over at the drive-thru, they're over at the register, they're trying to do immunizations, they're trying to do it all because they're just refusing to delegate. Now, I understand that sometimes money is an issue, but when you look back at this whole thing, this whole 4 years as, well, I'm going to set up a $250,000 budget, which is about what most of you guys spent. And then you owe about $175 on that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend all of that money on everything but the only 2 documents that I have control over, the CV and the letter of intent. So as you're kind of looking at this big picture, rather than this is all I got in the bank, you're maybe thinking of it differently, like, wow, how would I treat this if I started off? And if you had started off 4 years ago or 3 years ago, if you're an accelerated, like, okay, well, as we get towards that, if those documents are so important, then I absolutely am going to have to invest in those and make sure to set aside some amount towards that. And I'm just telling you to work with me for the one. And I'm telling you, the last person you want judging your letter of intent as good or bad is yourself. There is going to be tremendous pressure coming from it, tremendous pressure coming from other people applying, tremendous pressure from the residency group. That is a group that already has made it to the next level. And that next level group is judging your documents. The question is, have those documents been under pressure? Has anyone actually gone in and said, this is bad, this needs a lot of work? Okay? And I've had those conversations with a lot of people by email, but I am very honest about, hey, we need to do an overhaul here because, look, I know where you're applying. I know how many applications they get. I know this stuff is in your CV and in your background, but it's not here on the page because you're there at the end of the marathon, you're exhausted, you just want to just hand it in, you just want to be done. So no excuse now. It takes me 24 hours to get it back to you. Once you sign up, get me the letter of intent and your CV, and then in a concise sentence, let me know what you want to do with your career. For example, I want to be an ambulatory care pharmacist earning my BCACP, serving an underserved community in rural Georgia or wherever it is. Okay, so it really, I know it's so easy to just push submit right now. I know that the new year is around the corner, but I'm going to tell you that, I've been, let's go to chess, because I've just kind of picked up chess as kind of a fun thing to do, because it's something that takes some kind of getting used to. But there's a point in chess where if you lose your queen and they still have theirs, it is an absolute annihilation of your pieces, and your chances of succeeding are in some ways obliterated. So many of you are looking at a match rate that doesn't take into account a huge number of your school's group gets annihilated during the interview part. That is, some schools, a quarter or a third of the applicants will not ever see an interview. And then there's the converse, where maybe like 27 out of 30 will get an interview, and those guys have to go through the devastation of having only 10 of those make it out. And I think what's happening is, for the didn't get an interview, that's really inexcusable. There is a residency for everyone. Now, is it in your heart to do residency? Yes or no? If it isn't, they're going to detect that right away, and that's going to make sense. You'll be like, yeah, I didn't really try. I didn't really want it. My heart wasn't in it. It was just kind of something I felt I should do. But there is no excuse for anyone who wants a residency, who is able to go broadly. Now, if you're kind of very hyper local, where you're picking residencies because they're close to you rather than because you match and you're hoping to make it work, that's kind of a different thing. But if you have a somewhat broad ability to go to many residency sites, to look at what you've done and what they offer, there really are a ton of residencies available. And you should at least get through that first stage, that interview stage. Now, I've set up the course, and I'll talk more about this in the coming weeks, about the actual interview, as some of you are going to start this new year off with a number of interview invitations. And there is a lot more to it than just, okay, well, I'm just going to show them that I'm the best person for the spot. What actually you have to do is, you may have to beat out someone who they think already is the best person for the spot. Or you might be the person they think is that person, and you're going to have to defend your position. And so there's so many different ways that I've kind of worked out to get a better idea of what's going to happen, what to expect, what are the kind of secrets that you can kind of take with you as you're going into these interviews? And then what cues are you looking for? Because the one thing that is so unsatisfying and so confusing at the end of the interview is that when it's over, it's not even okay, we'll let you know in 2 weeks. All right, well, we'll rank you and you'll rank us. Maybe. What is that? Like, what do you do with that? Right? And I talk about that in a couple episodes, and I talk a little bit about that in the course, but we'll talk about this over the next few weeks. But instead of, hey, all right, I want to work for you. Do you want me to work for you? I don't know. I don't know if you're going to be the best one. Well, we're going to see if you're the best one, and then we're going to see if you think we're the best one. And then from there, sometime in March, we'll all do this at the same time. And then 3,000 people will not know what they're doing for a job all at once. And in this market, that is a terrible, terrible place to be. So I've kind of wandered off the path here. Please send your letter to me. Let me work with you one-on-one on that so important first template. That first template is going to be the one that has to take all this pressure of the rapidity of it, the RPD being exhausted, the residency committee being exhausted, the pressure you have from others who are applying also. From there, you can be confident like, oh, that's what I should be doing. That's the angle I should be taking. Because as I'm kind of looking at this, I'm seeing 4 different categories for an applicant. And if you want to think of one of those like boxes with 4 boxes in it, there's the acute care clinician with the acute care administrative and management and staffing and all that. There's the acute care clinical, but that maybe is combined with some ambulatory care. Then there's the ambulatory care, where this is really more of a community pharmacy or maybe one of those clinics that's associated with a school of pharmacy. And then there are the super leadership ones where you've got the combination of that master's in leadership, and you have to be excellent at acute care, but you also have to be excellent at operations. And I'm seeing that some people are trying to write this letter fits all for all 4 of these different types, when these are 4 different things. I've got triplets, and when the teacher met them, she's like, you guys are sisters? You don't look anything alike. You don't act anything alike. And that's the same way here. A resident is not a resident is not a resident. A community resident, an acute care resident, a PGY1/PGY2 resident, and then the kind of ambulatory acute care, maybe going on to AmCare. There's 4 completely different arguments that you have to make. Okay, you can use community experience with an ambulatory care application, but your community experience may fall short if you're applying to a top hospital. In the same token, if you've really not done a lot of AmCare and all of your stuff is acute care, well, they're going to start questioning, well, are we the backup? Are you just applying to us because you think it's going to be easier to get in here and you just want to get a residency to get a residency? And as I go through and look at your CV, combine it with your purpose statement or your mission statement, and look at the letter that you've written, I can take all of those things and make it so that you agree with what you're trying to do, which agrees with the site that you're trying to earn an interview for. So again, 24-hour turnaround from now to the 16th. Just let me know and I will get in touch with you. I've gotten through most of my quotation fingers work queue, as it were, but it really is a labor of love. I love this stuff. I get a dopamine burst every time I get to make sure that a letter is where it needs to be. And I know that this is deflating for many of you guys. So again, bring me in. This is something that I just love to do.